Hello everyone. First I would like to thank you all for showing up today. It is really a pleasure to see so many of you. My name is Marko Aleksandric. I'm software engineer in the Business Central application team, and here with me today is my colleague Larsen.
Yeah, hello, my name is Anders. I have been working with this great product for quite some time, and I still love every day that I take into work to work with it. But welcome.
Today we are going to present you several topics. Some of them are new, some are old but not well known. I hope that you will find them interesting and that you'll be able to learn something new. First topic, Management Code Unit Antwerp, presented by Anders. So Anders, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So we have iterated through this, and many others have iterated through the Managed Code Unit Anti-Pattern several times. This is just a little short reminder of it is completely violating simple responsibility. It's hard to maintain, hard to read. We still have a lot in the base app, and there's conflict by merging them. So why do we actually have those code containers? I think it goes back to when we had the old architecture, where we have the development environment, where you have to open an object. So there we just it was a good idea to have code containers because you then don't need to go forth and back. Now we can search around and it works way more better. We will eventually deprecate those, but we will do the strategy. The strategy is to dehydrate them as we are touching areas, take the code out and put it into more dedicated code units, and hopefully we'll get rid of some of them down the road. We have new patterns, new capabilities as we have moved to a Visual Studio. Wonderful. I will just give a little sneak peek in one of the things we have been utilizing for this release, called the orchestra pattern. Here is a drawing. We will not go through the code in detail for this presentation here, but the idea of the orchestra pattern is having kind of, should I say, a storyboard. So this story will be, this is for the 1099 US tax thingy, where you need to have proof that the vendors truly have sent those invoices to you, so you're not cheating. That's the short introduction to why we have this feature. The story is we need to calculate some form boxes, we need to create some documents, and we need to print. What is grayed out will come later, email and submit. So each story have its contract. I need to have glasses on. And for each contract, we have implementation. That will kind of leave very well up to have this single responsibility of code. I have another drawing, if that is more easier to look into. And you can see underneath here, there is a link to GitHub, where you can take a deeper dive into the code. But again, we have the orchestra containing the story, the definition of interfaces and component as well. A little sample of how the contract could look, even though I'm not going to show much code in this part of the presentation. As you can see, it is rather set into building brackets where it has single responsibility and hopefully a reasonable okay naming, telling what that code unit and that function should do. So we have a single responsibility principle here of solid. We keep the collections of interfaces and contract in one place, and it is also working very well with the facade around. So you have implementation and a facade, and therefore you can, yes. Again, there I can see we have a link to the code. So this is an example of a new way of coding that we have started to uptake here, and this is presented here for an inspiration for you if you so want to follow that path. Kind of also works a bit well with the factory pattern. But, if you are writing an app, I know a lot of you have done that already, probably also some test. If you in the app have internals, you can use in the app JSON to give your test access to those internal. It will be recommended to also do that in test library instead of the test, or do that, create a test library and then the test, and then they expose you are to the internal, to the test library. So if somebody else extend part of the app that is not internal, then they can also write test. Please be aware that internal is not the same as non-debuggable. So if you have sensitive code, sensitive things, you should use that property in your app. And just to see how simple it is, there's this internal visible to in the app JSON, where you in this case can see that we have exposed internal visible to the test library. There will be room, hopefully, for questions in the end. Now I'll hand over the word to Marko.
Thank you. Probably some of you had a situation where client asks you, can I have just 3 these values in the list, I'm not using the other ones? Or can I have the value X on the top of the list because I'm using it mostly, I need to scroll each time to the end of the list to get it? Or they have just some options which I don't use, and user can be confused. Actually, this can be done pretty easy, and it is already implemented in the standard code. If you take a look on any purchase or sale document subform, you will see here, for example, on the sales invoice subform that we have 2 times field type. And one, the regular one, enum, and another one as a text. We are interested in this text one. And as you can see, we have the table relation on the option lookup buffer table, and the lookup page is option lookup list. And this table needs to be filled in some moment, as it is temporary, and it is done on the init trigger of the page. And as you can see, values like item and GL account are always there, but values like item charge, resources, and fixed asset are added just in case they are in use in the system. So the purpose of this change was to eliminate the values which are not in use. Except that we have the part of code which is in charge for controlling the values. So what user can select or type. So auto-completion is also included in this functionality. And of course, we need to have the synchronization between the regular field and this text one, as for further processing system use the regular one. I would like also to mention that we have the property values allowed, which can be used for this kind of situation, but it has limitations, as it can be used just in the same app where the field is created. And also, if you have some specifics, you need to code it. If you want to make something similar, it is pretty easy. I will demonstrate you some example. Here we have the general journal and the field document type with several options. And if you don't want to use some of the values, or some users not to be able to use some values, you can make your own lookup for that page. And to do that, you need to extend option lookup type, enum, create 2 subscribers, and make the page extension of the particular page. The only limitation here is that you cannot set the order of the values. So I will demonstrate to you. So we have the option lookup type enum, and we extended it with additional value. And except that, we need to create two subscribers. One to define which field we want to, for which field we want to create the lookup, and another one to choose which values we are going to use. So we can define some specific conditions for this part. And of course, we need to create the page extension for the particular page where we will remove the regular field, add our new text one, and add some code to complete the full logic and do the synchronization with these two fields. Also, this is not applicable just on the enum fields. You can use it with different types of fields. So for example, for the code type field, you can also implement this logic. It is a bit more coding, but still it is not too complicated. Here we have the service order. And for example, we don't want to use all locations for the service document. So we can make our own lookup page, and for this we need to extend option lookup type. We need to create new temp table and new lookup page. The good thing is that we can copy most of the code from the original one, and of course we need to extend the page that we are going to update. This code will be code for this example, and the previous one will be available on the GitHub, so you can check it, try it, make your own examples. And now Andres will present you the temporary table anti-pattern. Here you are.
Thank you. Thank you, Marko. So something old, but in a new context, at least in the new architecture that we have now in SAS, and also you have some degree on prem. When we got the temporary table 2 decades ago, I loved it. So we could take a huge amount of data, put them into a memory, offload that memory to the native client, the rich client, and then we wouldn't kind of impact the other users at the system because we have freed the shared resources, do the massaging blah, blah, blah on the temporary, and then when we are done either exporting, we're all good. But in general, it was looking good. We were very hopeful about that. We have seen moving to the new architecture that now we also take a lot of data from the SQL, put it in on the NST, but NST is now a shared resource. So it will impact my neighbor or whoever performance-wise. So a bit of performance impact. Then we also have the wonderful subscribers, especially on before insert trigger. Are you always sure that whoever subscribed to an on-insert on customer always cater for if rec is empty and then bail out? It could be that somebody else have a little code that do if customer insert, then I also need to see if I should insert payment terms and whatever. Traditionally, this is just sample code. We will have, or others, you will have, collect the entries, do something with the entries, and export them. If I go a bit down here, you can say you will iterate, blah, blah, blah. There's some filtering, and then we will go to somewhere. Yes, we take the entries and put them into the temporary, do something, blah, blah, and discount. This is a little issue we actually have on manual applying of entries in our posting functions. We will hopefully get around to fix this soonish. And then, if it, for instance, not have been applying entries, but collecting something to export for VAT or whatever, we will run the export. You could make that pattern just slightly better by introducing a temporary table with reduced numbers of columns as well. And the same code, collect, 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 and then export, but down here, whoop, whoop, whoop. We are not transferring the whole record, but only the fields we need to, the vendor number, the applied to amount. I think the entry number is already there. So we will have a very reduced set of data in memory. We could also, when we are fetching data from the SQL server, we could use this set load field. So there, again, we will get way smaller amount of data. So takeaway is try to utilize the table type is temporary and only fetch those fields and store them that you need. Actually, a good pattern for using temporary record could be what we used to name as buffer table, posting buffer. You start collecting something, oh, there's something I need to post, put it into the posting buffer of type temporary. And then when you are done collecting and want to post, you take the record, the posting buffer, iterate through them, call the posting routines, and clean up. That will also guarantee you don't have any orphan hanging, you know. And make sure that you, when you are declaring the variable, that it's truly a temporary you have. The compiler will help you with that. So now I'll hand the word back to Marko, who will talk about manuals, this manual subscriber pattern.
Thank you. One quick reminder, when we are creating the subscribers on the code unit level, we have option to set the event subscriber instance. And this property is there to define how the subscriber will be activated. We have two potential values, static automatic, which is the default one. So with this value, subscribers are always ready. And we have the manual, which we use when we want to activate subscriber in specific situation. Each time when subscriber is called, the new instance of code unit is loaded in memory, and it takes some processor time. And because of that, it would be great to call subscriber just in situation when you really need it. Because of that, our recommendation is use manual binding whenever it is possible. And interesting thing that the static automatic is the default option because it was introduced just a little bit small time before the manual option. But in general, we should use option manual as default if we can. To use the manual option, we have two procedures that we need to call. One is bind subscription, which we'll use for activating the subscribers, and unbind subscription, which we use to deactivate subscribers when the transaction is done. I will show you some very basic example. So as you can see, I hope that you're able to see it. We have very basic procedure which gets two number and sum it. And in that procedure, we have the publisher. And also, we have the subscriber for that publisher, which update the value of the number 1 if it's bigger than number 2. And also, we have set the property event subscriber instance to manual. So, when we, for example, call this procedure, Without the binding subscription, system will just sum these two values and return the result 15. But if you call it with bind subscription, system will call the subscriber, make the change of the number 1, and present the new value as 5 plus 5 is 10. So we can set when the subscriber will be executed, and it can be very useful in some situation. For example, here we have the subscriber on the code unit document print and on the publisher and before process print sales order. And here we set the language that will be used for the report. It's Dutch Belgian. So this is the subscriber which will be called just if we bind subscription on this particular code unit. And as you can see, without setting the bind subscription, system will just call report in the standard way how it's work. But if we have some specific condition, we can set it and add the bind subscription and unbind subscription and print report with some different language and any other specific change that we have. If we talk about the base app, we have the very interesting example of manual binding in the preview posting. If you take a look on the preview procedure in sales, purchase, service, and many other models, you will see that this procedure is almost the same for all of them. It is binding subscription to the same code unit and calling the general journal posting preview. And the subscribers in these code units are in charge to do the posting process. And general journal posting preview is activating the subscribers in the posting preview event handlers. And subscribers in this code unit are in charge to take the values from the posting procedures, actually to collect all the ledger entries and store them in temporary tables. And even the general journal posting preview is the main code unit here. He's doing almost nothing. He only have the common code related to the all posting procedures and presenting the values to the user. This approach is really interesting because the posting logic is kept in the posting procedure, and there is no mixing between different posting procedures. On the other side, all code related to the collecting values for the preview posting is stored in this posting preview event handler code unit. So we keep our code cleaner and it is easier to maintain it. In general, using the manual subscriber is very useful for many situations where we have some regular flow, and from time to time we have situations where we want to make something different. And of course, we have more control on the code execution. I would like to mention also that the example that I show, you can check them on the GitHub and try and make your own examples. And now Andres will present the isolated events. Here you are.
Thank you. So, again, in the old days we have if codeunit.run. That's good for kind of try something out and swallow the errors, so to speak, but it cannot collect all the errors that you are getting. We got try function, fantastic, but there's a limitation with the write operation. Now we have got isolated event, love it, and it's just another property when you subscribe. Please be aware that it calls an implicit commit after leaving the event. A very important detail. So a new transaction. It's good for doing automation, and it is also good for doing logging, if you so want to. So let's go down over and see some code. I will just flip here. Boom. So, and thank you, Marko, for learning me about manual subscribing, because this is used in this little test here. There's a little code unit that creates some customers and raise some event. The first one is having a non-isolated, and the second one is having an isolated event. So if I go to test, just talk to Ben. So this is a very simple little test. It binds the subscription. If you look a bit down, the subscriber here, that is just raising an error. So, and this is a non-isolated event. So if you run this test code unit, you will, on your code unit, insert customer after non-isolated event, then of course be an error. The error message here. All as we are used to. Another test. Again, I try to keep the code here very simple. So bind the subscriber, insert this, that will raise an event. Let me just say it here. First isolated event and insert customer. The isolated event we have down here, just doom. It is just throwing an error. So what is happening when I run this code? The first isolated event, an error, commit, not bail out, but continue. Insert the customer is insert. Straightforward, but still. And then, of course, we have a procedure with a very long name, insert customer in isolated event and throw error in non-isolated event. Again, we do the binding. We count the customers just to see what is going on. And here, second isolated event, and then a non-isolated event. So we will get an error executing this, but we will also get a customer insert. Again, I think the error that will come from this one is insert in the isolated event, and the error will come from this one, non-isolated event. But again, utilizing the manual binding is actually very good in test. Imagine if you somehow leave a test app and have a subscriber doing anything, or a lot, static, but have it more manual bound, so it will only be executed if you're running the test. Yeah. And then, is it time for GitHub request?
It is.
I think we'll have room for questions in the end.
Last but not the least, GitHub event requests. One question for you. How many events we have in the base app? Please raise your hand who thinks it is about 10,000.
1, 2?
Less, more?
Few, at least, is raising the hand.
We have more than 21,000 events in the base app. And how they are used? Unfortunately, More than 3,000 of them are not in use at all, if you talk about the SaaS version. Highly used one, we have less than 300, and events with low usage, we have more than 3,000 of them. Also, very popular is handled event. We have more than 7,000 of them. And if you take a look on the chart, you will see that with every new version, we are adding a very big amount of new events. It's something between 700 and 1,000. And interesting is that these events with is-handled pattern, we have more than 30% of them. Speaking of which, these kind of events, very popular, as I said, but unfortunately, in a lot of situations, we are using them wrongly. When they are introduced 6 or 7 years ago, the idea was to use this kind of events in situations where we don't have developed some functionality or part of functionality, or the current approach is not applicable in some scenarios. The idea also was to have only one subscriber which will update the handled variable and do the logic. And in case we have several subscribers, only all of them, they need to check, is it already handled? And if yes, just to leave it. And how we are using it today, in a lot of cases, just to skip some part of the standard code. That's not the greatest way of using the events. And all of us, we should make some additional efforts and try to create better events. As a help, we provided you a new guideline, a new request form with several questions that you need to consider when you are creating the requests. We divided events into several groups by their value, and we would really appreciate to see more high-value ones. Also, in this guideline, you will be able to see the examples of any type of events. When you're creating the request and you have several events related to the same functionality, please put all of them in one request. Give us a short description of what your intents are. It would be much easier for us to understand your need and help you with it. When I mentioned the is-handled events, we will probably be a bit more strict with them. Don't get me wrong, we don't want to make you stop creating the event requests. We just want to encourage you to create more events with a bigger value that can be used in different situations with different scenarios and applicable for many users. This guideline will be available soon on the GitHub, and after you're going through it, and if you have some questions, doubts, please tell us that we are aware in the fact that this is not the final last version and we have a lot of space for improve it. But this is a journey, and all of us, we should do our best to improve this process. At the end, I would like to thank you all for your contribution, not just with the event requests, but with other accessibility requests, ideas, bug fixes. It is really nice to see that so many of you want to be the part of this extraordinary software. So, thank you.
So actually, it turns out that we were talking through this a bit faster than we anticipated, so we have room for questions. There is this little thing we can hand it up together with a mic, and 2 t-shirts. Up.
Who wants a t-shirt? Oh, this is working. I had a question, Anders, about the internals visible. There is actually a vulnerability there, because if I know the ID of the app that is allowed to access it, I can create an app and access it. That was in the past. Is that still the case?
Yeah, internal visual 2 in the app you have will grant, in this case, the test library access to internal.
Yeah, but then if I create a new app with the same ID and the same publisher?
Probably yes.
Yeah. So what we do is when we build our app for production, we remove it from the app JSON, because it's used for test and only for test internal. And yeah, so but maybe it was changed in the application or the platform somehow. But be careful with this. That's my message. Yeah.
It's a very good comment.
Throw it somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's a good comment. We also do that a lot, even for our production apps. So I will remember that. Thank you. I have a question about the events subscriber or the code units. We use a lot of single instance code units to prevent the loading of the software, so to say.
Yes.
What is your idea on that? Because now with the manual subscription, it looks more in time, just in time, so to say.
I say yes.
In general, you can use both,
yeah,
and it will be the best probably.
Okay. Is there a mix, or is it like non-preferable, or?
Probably the best would be to use the manual binding whenever it is possible. Of course, there are situations where it is hard to use manual binding, but in general, using the single instance code unit is something that I think you can do in probably all situations. And of course, if you can use the manual binding in the same situation, that would be great.
Okay, thank you very much.
But use single instance code unit carefully.
And do not use globals.
Of course, if you can use the code units with less procedures, that will also be good, but yeah, it depends. Thank you.
Oh. It is this row who is very active. Here's a t-shirt.
What is advantage to use bind subscription if code should be called always? So no exception, no condition.
I'm not sure that I get you.
So if we have some event which need to call in all situations without any check, what the advantage of using bind and unbind subscription?
I think that advantage that is asking the question you said. Should it be used by all time? And are you damn sure? If not, use manual.
Okay.
So does this make sense? Pause and say, should I do this? And especially if you are writing tests, which I hope all engineers are doing nowadays, please, in the test, always use manual subscribers, as you might leave test somewhere where it shouldn't subscribe. We're out of t-shirts, but we have room for a question.
Yeah, so if I bind manually and then forget, or not even forget, but purposely don't unbind it because I may need to do it again, I believe it unbinds with the life cycle of the object that bound it. But is there any performance penalty to that? Should it be avoided?
Forgot to unbind it, and code unit is local. It's no problem. At the end of the transaction, it will be.
Yeah, I know that.
But I'm actually not sure about.
I'm actually using it. Okay.
I will check it definitely.
So there could be just a tiny bit, but the biggest performance gain, that is not to get the huge amount of data from the SQL server, massage them through with a non-index and so on and so forth, but of course, a little.
So this is just to follow on from his question. In general, manual versus binding, is there a performance difference, or is there an impact using the one over the other?
not significant. Again, think more about how you build your code instead of worrying about this binding, will this impact performance? Non-significant impact.
So efficient code will do the trick?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. One last question from yet another in the third row. Marko, we have this will be the last question for now. I really love that you have a lot of good questions here. Fantastic.
So you said regarding use a special temporary table, but there is a downside because I need to copy fields. Do you plan to add some like a reference to the main table, like a page where I can select the fields and I don't need it? For example, I change field in the main table and it automatically changed in the temporary table.
Well,
do you understand what I mean?
To a construct where you have a temporary table exposed on a page and you want to manipulate, change something in that row?
Oh, I mean, you suggested to use a pattern table temporary. But if I just create it, it means that I need to copy all fields from.
Hopefully, not all fields.
Not all fields, but if I change some field, I need to duplicate it.
Yes, but again,
it's a downside. Do you plan to?
Be a potential overhead, but the recommendation that is to have temporary table with as few columns as possible. But of course, if there is a reason for you to have more or less the whole customer table in a temporary record for whatever good reasons, then do that. But just be aware that you shouldn't have 2 million rows that you need to copy, or 50,000. There's not a magic number, but again, pause, reflect, implement. Thank you all, and with that being said, we'll hand over to the next crew shortly. Yeah, you can applaud.
Thank you.